Hey YouTube, this is EvanMagician34, and I've got something really unusual for you. I've been trying to build this deck for a while and just finally got all the pieces together. It's something I call Terminal Garden. You can also call it the Timeater deck, you can call it a variety of things. It's based on a combo between Timeater, Terminal World, and Black Garden, where basically your opponent never gets a main phase ever again, so they can't summon, they can't do much of anything, all they get is to draw, and then they get a battle phase, and then they end. Well, they also get a standby phase, but you basically paralyze them and they can't set new traps or activate most of their spells and things like that. So let's go ahead and get to it. We run 3 copies of Timeater. This is an old 6-star machine. It's dark. It's got 1900 attack, and what it does is anytime it destroys an opponent's monster in battle, it doesn't have to send it to the graveyard, it just has to kill it in battle. Your opponent loses their next main phase 1. So that's a pretty good card already, but we're going to make it a little bit better with the rest of this stuff. Part of how we're going to use Black Garden is we're going to use spirit monsters, like Maharagi, who's your primary spirit monster you're going to use. You summon it, you give your opponent an 800 point plant token in attack mode, you kill it with Timeater, they lose their next main phase. Maharagi goes back to your hand, next turn you do the same thing. Maharagi basically is just a 1200, 1700 spirit, and whenever you summon it or flip it face up or whatever, on your next draw phase you get to look at your top card and either put it back on top of your deck or on the bottom of your deck before you draw. So it helps you kind of accelerate through your deck, which is good because that's one of the things we want to do. Next we're running Neo-Spacian Grand Mole. Really important. If your opponent never gets a main phase, they can't summon anything. Mole can bounce anything that was too big or scary for Timeater over and over again, and he can be resummoned into Black Garden too. So he's pretty important, and you don't have a lot of answers to really big monsters inherently, so you have to rely on cards like this instead. Our other spirit monster is Gundari, actually. He's actually a little bit smaller than Maharagi, he's only 1000 attack, but he's like a Neo-Spacian Grand Mole when he attacks into Synchro monsters. He'll bounce the Synchro on himself. And so what's cool about that is he's a spirit and he just bounces endlessly, but he also answers big threats, so it's kind of like you're running 2 moles. Although Mole is obviously more versatile. We also run Sangan to help search for all this stuff. We don't have a very high monster count, but that's cool, because we don't really want one. We're also running 3 Battle Faders. It's quite possible you're going to get attacked directly when you got nothing on the field to defend yourself, so this guy's a great way to tribute into Timeater and block attacks simultaneously. Another way you can defend yourself is Spirit Reaper. Another cool thing about Spirit Reaper is you can set him, and then when your opponent loses all their monsters, except for the token you're going to kill every turn with Black Garden and Timeater, you can actually turn Spirit Reaper to attack mode and start ripping cards out of their hand in case they somehow get out of your lock. So it's a great way to follow up. Plus, of course, he doesn't die in battle, so you can tribute him for Timeater. Dandelion, it's your last monster. Basically not exactly rocket science here. You set him, buy time, makes tokens to tribute into Timeater. He's also a good reanimation target. Okay, next we're running 3 copies of Terminal World. Terminal World just says nobody gets a main phase 2. It's just like when you play on the dual terminal, and it's a continuous spell. We're also running 3 copies of Black Garden, obviously. The deck really doesn't work very well, or indeed at all, without Black Garden. We're not running Terraforming, but we are running the 3 gardens, just to make sure we hit it. But we do have other ways to search for it, so Terraforming is kind of a waste of space. You don't really care what your opponent's life points are, because you're eventually going to grind him to death in battle with Timeater and other monsters. So 3 Upstart Goblin, you don't care what your opponent's life points are. It's just a great way to speed through your deck. And taking advantage of the new ban list, we are running 3 copies of Gold Sarcophagus. You really have to analyze your hand very carefully to make sure you sarc for the right card. It takes a little bit of experience and practice to get it down right, but this card helps you pull your combo together because there are a lot of pieces to it. But don't be afraid when the time is right to sarc for things like your 1 copy of Giant Trunade or other things like that. You know, some of your one-ups that could be very important to you. Grand Mole is another good target. We're running Monster Reborn, lots of things that could die that you want to bring back, Timeater, Grand Mole, stuff like that. Giant Trunade, a great way to protect yourself because you can replay all of your continuous spells and whatnot, and once they're locked up in your opponent's hand and they will get main phases, they can't replay them. So Trunade, very good, very crucial to getting off. There's also Book of Moon. One of the few cards that really threatens this deck once your lock is actually in place is Effect Veiler, so you definitely want to summon 2 Timeaters to help get around Effect Veiler. But if they do Effect Veil you, they have to do it during your main phase, of course. So say when you pass your priority at the end of main phase 1 to try to go to your battle phase, and they go Effect Veiler, well, when that chain resolves, it's still main phase 1, And you can just activate your Book of Moon, still main phase 1, flip summon your Timeater, unless of course you just summon the Timeater. So it can work in that capacity. It can also protect you against big monsters. We're running 1 copy of Call of the Haunted, pretty much the same reason as Monster Reborn, and it also gives you tribute fodder for Timeater, of course. We're running 3 copies of Threatening Roar to kind of help make sure everything goes off early. It buys you some time and can protect your tribute fodder monsters. We're also running 2 copies of Compulsory Evacuation Device. Just important, once again, to bounce away threats that Timeater can't kill and that might threaten to retaliate in your opponent's battle phase and kill your Timeater. We're running Solemn Judgment. Most of your opponent's worst threats, other than Effect Failure, are going to be spells and traps. They're going to interfere with you actually setting up your combo, and Solemn Judgment's a good way to stop that. And last but not least, we are running 3 copies of Dark Bribe. The reason for this is one of the few ways your opponent can get out of the lock is MST. And if they top deck the Typhoon, they can play it, and then they can go ahead and start doing other stuff eventually because they get out of your lock. Dark Bribe can stop that. It also stops things like Royal Oppression that can ruin your day. So, quite important there. You don't run any real means of tuning yourself, but because you're in Monster Reborn, of course, you might theoretically be able to synchro. So better to be prepared than not. Mistworm, Stardust Dragon, Scrap Dragon, Colossal Fighter, Thought Ruler Archfiends, and these can be ways to control your opponent while you're trying to set up. Dark End Dragon, because remember your Timeater is dark. Black Rose Dragon. And we're actually running Ancient Fairy Dragon, and we're running Ancient Fairy because if your opponent does run field spells themselves, like they're running Gravekeepers or something like that, you can use that to pop their spell and then search up your own Black Garden. So it can be a way to accelerate yourself. And plus that 3000 defense is quite nice. Scrap Archfiend if you just need a big beat stick in the 7-star slot. Rebellum because your opponent can easily be put in a position where they just have a million cards in their hand, basically. He can be a great way to make their already bad situation even worse. Bryanek, Dragon of the Ice Barrier. Gaia Knight, just a 6-star beat stick, basically. Ally of Justice Catastor, he can be a good way to threaten big cards, too. Armory Arm, in case you need to sync away your Sangan or something. And Formula Synchron, and that's 1-star tuner, like, say, Effect Failure from your opponent's grave, plus, like, a Dandy token. So, anyway, that's the deck. And please feel free to rate, comment, subscribe, and check out my channel. Lots of cool videos and decks there, too. And so, until next time, catch you later.